Welcome back to another episode of Not Just Leadership, hosted by Global Institute for Leadership. My name is Dominic de Moura McCarthy, and it's a real pleasure to have you tuning in. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. This is our third episode, and we don't have someone to interview today. It's back with myself as the host. But we're going to be talking about a very important theme of courage. And it's a very big word, very fancy word. But in the last couple of weeks, it's been a crazy few weeks with the murder of Charlie Kirk, very well-known commentator, influencer, leader from the United States of America. And so it's been making me really reflect on a number of different topics, and courage being one of those main ones. It's one that Charlie spoke a lot about. And here at the Global Institute for Leadership, we really want to upskill people to be leaders that stand for values, that have confidence in their beliefs, and that communicate ideas clearly. On our first episode, we talked about communication, and I went through some of the different strategies we can use and how to improve our communication. And it's something that I'm always learning and something that I'm always wanting to work on. But it's something that someone like Charlie Kirk was very gifted at. He was able to communicate ideas with clarity and engage in respectful dialogue, which I think is more important than ever. The world is very fractured. The world is very divided. And we need people who stand up for the truth and who speak with clarity in difficult situations and who have courage to back themselves and to engage in dialogue and debate. And I think being murdered for your opinions is deeply, deeply disturbing. Even more so is seeing people celebrate that. Absolutely sickening. And so I think it's time that we turned a new page. It's a turning point. And I think it's time that more of us took the microphone and carried on Charlie's legacy. And, whether you believed all of what he said, some of what he said, or none of what he said, that's not the point of it. The point of it is to have courage, to engage in debate, to be respectful, and to all work together for a better society. And I think Charlie was, making great strides in that area. And he was able to, talk about a lot of sensitive topics that we're scared to talk about today. And that's the reality of it. He brought arguments that were truthful, I believe. And he was very respectful, a very well-researched person. And so I just want to pay tribute to his life of 31 years. It's a life that was cut short by far too many decades and decades. And, when we normalize political violence, the target can be on any of us, if we start to accept this sort of abhorrent, evil behavior. So it's on all of us to step up and to speak out. I've had a number of friends who have, been sharing about him, a number of friends in the Pacific, even in Latin America as well, sharing about his legacy and how he touched them. So he really had a worldwide influence. But this episode, look, we're going to dive into the topic of courage, and not just in leadership, but how we live, what we stand for, and the choices we make in life. And I want to just bring you to the definition first in the Cambridge Dictionary. And the definition of courage is the ability to control your fear in a dangerous or difficult situation. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. The ability to control your fear in a dangerous or difficult situation. That's the definition of courage, according to the Cambridge Dictionary. And according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, courage is the mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. I'll just repeat that once more. Courage is the mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. I think those two definitions really encapsulate the word so beautifully, better than how I could describe it. Being able to control your fear, being able to have moral or mental strength to go through situations, to not let difficulty or danger get in your way. And I think as leaders, we all need more courage. We see a lot of leaders in today's societies who are lacking in courage, who are scared to, engage in different dialogue and debate and say anything that goes against the grain. So we need more people with courage. It's something that's very, very difficult. It's not easy. Even doing this podcast requires a lot of courage, putting myself out there. I encourage you to take the lead as well and put yourself out there on social media in real life as well, not just online. It's harder. I think it's easier to, post about things and share things on your story and maybe do a video on it, but it's harder to bring that courage into real life and engage with people face to face. And that's what we want to build up through this podcast and through these programs that we run. So a quote from Charlie Kirk on courage, fittingly, he said, "Courage is the ultimate virtue. Without it, there are no other virtues. If people aren't courageous, you don't have honesty, you don't have justice, you don't have beauty, you don't have wonder." And so I think that really resonates with me because courage is the foundation that allows all the other values to exist. It's the first and foremost, one of the base that we need is courage, because if we don't have the ability to speak out, to step forward in our dreams and passions and projects, then you don't have honesty, as Charlie said. You don't have justice. You don't have beauty. You don't have wonder, because there's nothing underpinning all of that. And so I just want to share, a quick story. There's been a few times where I feel like I've had to act courageously, even though it wasn't popular or easy, whether that be in work or in volunteer roles or in the community, calling out bad behavior, setting expectations within a team, standing up for my beliefs and what I believe is right and the truth. And recently there was actually a time where I was really disappointed in myself because I had a colleague who made a very political comment about something that I felt was very unfair and unjust and didn't sit right with me. And in the moment there was other colleagues in the room, and I didn't say anything. I stayed silent, but I did regret it quite immediately after. I thought that was an opportunity where I could have engaged, I could have had courage, and I could have shared what I was thinking and what I believe, and refute the argument that was put forward that I found was quite baseless. So we all have times where we want to show more courage and where we have shown courage, but I think we need to continue to just back ourselves. Hey, if you bring your ideas with respect, hopefully you'll be received well. As I mentioned, there are people who, even, if someone is murdered or assassinated, they do celebrate that, unfortunately. So there's definitely people out there who don't want to engage, who want to shut down anyone who has courage. But we can't let those people be the majority. We have to let them be the minority. The majority of us has to stand up for what's right. And we have to bring ourselves to these debates and bring ourselves to these initiatives, to these projects, to these organizations, put our hand up for roles, take on responsibility, stand up for what's right, and show courage in today's world. So let's break it down. Let's break courage down into 3 different ideas together. So courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. Courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. So everyone feels fear. It's a natural instinct to have. Everyone is fearful. There's no one out there who doesn't have any fear in the world. There's those who choose to do things anyway, leaders who choose to move anyway, who choose to act even though they feel fear. And then there's those that let it get the better of them. And so having courage doesn't mean you don't have fear. Doesn't mean that it's not there, but it's taking action in spite of that, and using that as fuel, using that fear as positive energy, and continuing to step forward and advance despite that feeling. So when was the last time you did something when you felt afraid? Can you think of a situation where you felt fear, but you still put your hand up, you still spoke up, you still took on that role, took on that job? Think about that situation. Think about how it made you feel, and a sense of accomplishment you felt afterwards because you didn't let the fear get the better of you. So point number 1 is courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. Point number 2, courage protects your convictions. Courage protects your convictions. So Charlie Kirk said, if you believe in something, you need to have the courage to fight for those ideas, not run away from them or try and silence them. So leaders who stand firm in their values, they inspire us because they build trust. They inspire us because even when it costs them, they still step up. They still have the courage to follow through with their convictions, to follow through with their words. So if you have an idea, if you have something that you believe in, if you have something that's a conviction, your courage will protect that because you use that courage to speak up, to share what you believe, and to ultimately engage in the battle of ideas and engage in becoming a leader. Leadership is all about those who, put their hands up and those who don't. And those who put their hands up have to be prepared to stand for something, have to be prepared to have courage and conviction. And so the courage protects our convictions. Leaders who stand firm in their values, they build the sense of trust. People want to follow them and people want to go along the ride with them because they see that that person has put everything on the line. They're willing to lose it all, to cost everything for their courage and by standing with their convictions. And let's move on to point number 3. So courage is contagious. Courage is contagious. Have you ever seen one person step up and share their opinion in a group, on a roundtable discussion or amongst friends, and then all of a sudden everyone else jumps in and shares their 2 cents and engages in the conversation? And that's the beautiful thing about being courageous, is that it inspires others to do the same thing, to voice their opinions and ultimately contribute to this broader discussion and debate that we're having. And so when one person steps up, it empowers others to do the same. So maybe it starts with you. Maybe it starts with you being that first person, voicing an idea, taking on a project, participating in an organization, showing that courage, and others come along with you. Others join the organization. Others also share their opinions. Others contribute to the project because you're the one that took the lead. And so leadership we have to be courageous. We have to be. I've decided to set up this podcast not because I'm qualified to do it, but because I had the courage to back myself, to share my story and my learnings with you, and hope that it inspires you to do the same. We want to be people who take action, whose leadership style is contagious amongst others, where people want to come along for the ride. People want to come on the journey. People are buying into what we believe in, not because it's something superficial, but because it's something that's grounded and that is based in values and conviction. So courage is contagious. It only takes one person to break the silence for others to follow. And often, people in the room are wanting to say something or are wanting to join your project, but they're scared, they're hesitant because no one else is doing it. So you be that first person to take the first step and watch how that contagion feels amongst other people and how other people also join along for the ride. So the 3 points we talked about: courage. Let's just go back and recap. Number 1, courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. Courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. Number 2, courage protects your convictions. Courage protects your convictions. And number 3, courage is contagious. Courage is contagious. I think there's really 3 ideas that are straight to the point about what is courage and what it means and how we can apply that in our everyday life. You're going to have fear. You're going to have people questioning you. You're going to have yourself questioning yourself. There's going to be people who are wanting to step into what you're doing, but they're waiting for someone to take the lead. And courage is going to align with your values and your convictions and allow you to fully articulate what you believe in and be the leader that you were called to be. So, what has courage meant to you in your leadership journey? Has there been moments where you've shown courage, and has there been moments where you've lacked courage? And what can you do to overcome that, to battle that inner thoughts that are winning you over? Let's win over those thoughts. Let's take captive those thoughts and turn those thoughts into good, turn those thoughts into positive energy, and step forward with courage into our projects, into our community, into organizations, into debates in society, political discussions, whatever it may be. Use that fear and use that fear as energy and as courage to step up for what you believe in. Look at someone who, like Charlie Kirk, went into university campuses day after day after day, engaging in respectful debate, putting everything on the table, just standing there for microphone, no notes, open discussion. Anyone can come forward to the microphone and bring their opinions and engage in this dialogue that is so needed in today's society, so needed more than ever. And it starts with us to be the ones who take the lead in this area. As I said, don't let the minority destroy our democracy, destroy our civilization. Let's speak up as the majority and drown out those evil voices who would celebrate the death of someone for their political views. And let's be people who engage, discuss, converse, disagree, agree, and continue to shape our societies going forward, because we need it more than ever. We need it more than ever. And so let's just do 3 practical takeaways to finish. So I've given you 3 ideas earlier about what it means to be courageous. And I now want to just do another 3 practical takeaways that you can really apply in your daily life. I want this podcast to be as practical as possible. Each second week, we have someone, we interview a guest. You can hear their leadership, guests from across the Pacific and Latin America. And in the alternating weeks through our podcast is released, I'll be bringing specific topics to you and sharing my journey and sharing my thoughts on these different themes. And so today's on courage, inspired by the death of Charlie Kirk just over a couple of weeks ago. And so 3 small takeaways. Okay. Well, the first one is start small. Finding courage. Let's find courage in our daily decisions. Okay. Not just thinking about big moments, big opportunities where we need to be courageous, where we need to be a hero. No, let's think about our day-to-day life and how we can be courageous in small decisions during the day. Okay. What can you do today to show courage? It doesn't have to be world-changing, but start with those habits in our personal life on a small scale in our daily life and watch that grow, watch that courage build up from something small. Second practical takeaway I want to leave with you today is anchoring your courage to your values. So when you know what you believe in, you know that it's worth standing for. When you know what you believe in, you know that it's worth standing for. What do you believe in? What are your key values that drive you? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you volunteer your time? Why are you working on that project? Why are you taking on leadership roles? What are your values that are driving you? Who are you as a person? And so anchoring that courage to our values. Okay, this is who I stand. This is what I stand for. This is who I am. What's the saying? If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for everything. What do you stand for? What are your values? What's driving you? Is it your faith? Is it your family? Is it your community that you want to give back to? What is driving behind? What is the driving force behind you for your values? And anchoring that courage, linking that courage to their values. Okay, this is what I stand for. Okay, so I'm going to speak up. I know it's worth standing for. I know what I believe in. I know that people need to hear my story, that people need to hear what I've got to say. So anchoring the courage to your values. And third practical takeaway, practice speaking up. You've got to practice somewhere, okay? So let's start somewhere. Whether it might be in a meeting, it might be with your friends, it might be in the community, it might be at your church, it might be when you're traveling. Start speaking up in these small situations and practice. Build this muscle of courageous action. I talked about communication a few weeks back and how it was a muscle we have to build and develop. Likewise, being courageous is something we have to build. None of these things are necessarily come easily to people. Maybe some people are more naturally gifted than others, but we have to build up this habit. We have to build up these muscles over time of being courageous. So practice speaking up in smaller situations, okay? Maybe you're with maybe you're with a group of friends who you probably agree with maybe a number of different topics, but find situations even then where you can be courageous and speak up. If you see something on the street, if you see something at work, that isn't right, speak up. Have your voice heard and share what you think and say, no, that's not correct what happened. Okay? I don't believe what I just saw is correct. And the matter of fact is it isn't correct. There's a right and there's a wrong. In the world, I believe there's a moral right and a moral wrong. There's good and evil. And so let's practice speaking up in those smaller situations. I'm as guilty as this as you are, probably. This is as much advice for me as it is for you. I'm not perfect. This is something I need to work on as well. And so we're on this journey together. So let's practice speaking up. Okay. So courage isn't just about big, bold acts. It's about being consistent. It's about making a decision each day to live a life that's aligned to our values, to be a leader that we were called to be. And to not just acting in the big situations, but daily situations. Okay, on a small scale. Let's start small. Let's anchor our courage to our values and practice speaking up. Courage is the foundation of leadership. There's a number of different themes in leadership that are foundational, and courage is one of them. Being able to speak up, being able to take the mic, take the podium, being able to take on those leadership roles, being able to chair the meeting, and hear people's opinions and agree to disagree, engaging in debate. Courage is foundational in leadership. And another quote from Charlie that I want to leave you with before we wrap up today's podcast is a very famous quote that is going around at the moment, going viral, from Charlie. And he said, I wanted to be remembered for courage, for my faith. He was a man of faith. He was a man of God. And whether you believe in God or not, that's okay. But he believed, I believe, and he put his life on the line for God and to serve his purpose. And that's something beautiful, knowing that, he's at peace at the moment in heaven. And he wanted to be remembered for his faith. And you look at his memorial service and it was just centered on his faith and on God. And that was something he wanted to be remembered for. So what do you want to be remembered for? One day when we all die, at your funeral, your memorial, what would they say? What would they remember you for? For Charlie, it was faith. He said he wanted to be remembered for faith, and he was. His memorial was just honoring his faith in God. And this isn't necessarily a podcast that is specifically focused on God. I'm not here to preach to you. But as individuals, we have values, we have beliefs. Myself as a Christian person, I also want to be remembered for my faith. Likewise, as Charlie did. And he was very, very confident in that and was able to articulate that publicly. The Vice President of the United States, for example, said that since Charlie died, he has talked about faith more in his public life than, his whole career. And so I think, what do you want to be remembered for? What is it that you want to be remembered for? And what can you do to fulfill that so that when the time comes when we all leave this earth, people remember you for that thing that you wanted to be remembered for? It's all good and well to say, I hope that at my funeral they say this. Okay. So what are you doing to have that legacy? What actions are you taking to project into the future, to being that person remembered for those different acts, for that service, for those beliefs? So this is really a call to action for our listeners to take courage, have hope, step forward in confidence. Let's journey together on this podcast. I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. But I think together we can have courage to stand up for what we believe in, have faith, achieve our full potential. And so thanks so much for joining this episode of Not Just Leadership Podcast, our third episode here at the Global Institute for Leadership. Next week's episode, we'll be sitting down with a young leader called Daniel Nieto he's a Colombian Australian leader. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation. But in the meantime, please make sure you connect with us on our social media. We're on all the different socials. Our podcast is published on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the main podcast platforms, as well as YouTube. And we look forward to staying connected. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate you joining in. Really value your time, and see you next week. Thank you.